Did pockets of paganism survive in medieval Europe after Christianization? Yes, they did. See, Christianity was imposed on the Europeans by force. But even though it was imposed by force, it was difficult to control the Europeans. So, what the Christians would do, the Christian converters and colonizers and the church officials and all, what they would do is, the Europeans had their ancient religion, which was nothing but a continuation of the Indian Vedic religion. The same religion in different shapes and forms, same gods and goddesses in different shapes and forms. So the Europeans had this practice of having temples. They had this practice of having sacred mounds and hills. They had the practice of having sacred wells and sacred groves of trees. So the Christians would do what? They would destroy the pre-Christian temples and build a church there, so that the worship would be continuous in the same place, and it will be easier to convince the Europeans, to keep worshiping in the same sacred place. But now it's a church, and it's Jesus Christ. It's no longer your gods and goddesses. Similarly, the practice, there was something called bad Christianity or something, in which various pre-Christian traditions were continued within Christianity. Certain places were regarded as sacred. Everyone knew that these are pre-Christian sacred places and all, and that also continued. And some parts of Europe simply did not become Christian for a very long time. Certain Slavic regions became Christian only in the 19th century or 18th or 19th centuries. Lithuania barely became Christian. Lithuania and all, they continued many pagan traditions as syncretic traditions within Christianity. There are many cathedrals that have clearly non-Christian symbols in them. In Russia, in the Slavic regions, like I said, there were many places where Christianity barely existed. It was just barely practiced. There was this very famous Russian Orthodox Christian monk called Rasputin. He was regarded as a pagan, so strong were his pagan practices. So yeah, it was like that in different parts of Europe. The church tried to hammer everybody into submission, and they tried to impose Christianity everywhere, but it succeeded at different levels in different places. In some places, you had clear syncretism and various sacred festivals, pre-Christian festivals, were then absorbed into Christianity, and Christian symbolism was superimposed on top of those. The winter solstice is what? December 22 or something, but it was turned into December 25, Christmas, that sort of thing. 22, 23 is the solstice, right? Which is the winter solstice? One second. Give me a second. I'm sure it's December 22/23. Winter solstice. 21 December. Okay, so a few days ago. So that was turned into Christmas, December 25. Maybe it was 25 earlier, maybe 2000 years ago, whatever it was. So that's what was done. And a lot of these pre-Christian practices somehow managed to survive despite the Christianization and so on. So you had pockets of paganism which did survive in Europe after Christianization or despite the Christianization. And in the 20th century, you had the revival of pre-Christian religions and so on. In the Nordic countries, you have something called asatru, which is a revivalist form of the Nordic paganism with the old gods, Thor, Odin, Woden, so on and so forth, Freya, Yggdrasil, and so on. And in the Baltic, no, in the Lithuania, Latvia region, you have the revival of Romuva, which is the old religion, and sometimes they have to bring in priests from outside. Okay, Romuva. So it's a neo-pagan religion, based on the old culture and religion of Lithuania, and sometimes they have to bring in priests from outside of Europe, priests who know the old traditions better. For example, one second, let's open that. Give me a second. So sometimes for practicing the Romuva religion, they have to bring in priests from outside who know the old traditions and religion better. So here you have a Hindu priest officiating at a Romuva ritual. because it is the same religion, by the way, FYI, right? So yeah, it's kind of still survives, and some people are trying to revive the old culture, which, well, good for them. I wish them the best.